Okay, pardon me. I do need to apologise. Last video, for whatever reason, I had the microphone on mute. I'm going to blame the computer, but it's pretty much my fault. So I thought I'd, while I've still got the program, the everything up and running, I'll try and explain to you what we went through and did last video, because it's obviously going to be a bit tricky to. I mean, you can obviously just follow along with the video, but it's going to make it a bit tricky because I deliberately made some design decisions that weren't necessarily the best decisions, okay, but they were there to help sort of drill in some concepts. And the main one was the use of this node called game data. So I didn't say it, you wouldn't have heard it, but I did, I sort of kept prattling on about it, but unfortunately the microphone was blanked. The reason why I did this was to drill you into being able to access nodes, scenes remotely. Okay, so the best way to store game data in this case would be using a singleton. Now, and that way it can be accessed from any scene in the game. We're doing it this way just to practice instancing and learning where things sort of live on the scene tree. Okay, so last video, what we did was I believe we edited the player a little bit. Let's try and do it in a logical order. So we created this node, and we looked at a couple of different things. We looked at the variables and a different way we can look at changing variables, and that was using setters and getters. So if we have a variable here, using the set get command, we then have two functions. We have a set function or method and a get method, and that is a way that we can alter this variable here. Now it looks like a lot of work, but what it does is it allows us to do other things when the variable's changed. So in this case, what we're having, when we want to set the score, we wanted to make sure that if the score was above a certain number, it would reset, just like the old 1980s games. Sometimes when you hit a certain number, what we used to say is you'd clock the game. Okay, so it would then reset the score counter back to 0, and that's what this does. So if the current score plus the value is less than or equal to the maximum score, which we had set up here to 99, then that score would be equal to the value. If not, so if the score plus the value was actually greater than the maximum score, we would then reset the score to 0. And then the other thing is, when we're setting a score, we want to make sure that we check the current score against the high score, and if the current score is greater than the high score, we want to now update the high score. So that's what that part of the code was. And we also emit a signal. Okay, so the signal is emitted, and that is what we sort of connect our score or a graphical user interface up to. So we did that with the score, then we've got the high score setters and getters and the lives setters and getters. So again, the main points to take from this is that we're looking at a different way we can assign values to variables, and in this case we're actually using methods to do so, and in doing so we add a lot more functionality. So in this case, when we change it, we sort of check to make sure that that we're not sort of going above the high score. Okay, so I think that's the main take-home point from that. And so what we also did was we created a new scene called main, and then we assigned this main scene to the root to be the scene which is run when the game is run. And the reason why we did that was because we wanted to have this game data node accessible. Now, as I said, the best practice, the best way would be to assign this as a singleton, okay? However, what we want to do is we just want to drill home the fact that we can access other scenes, okay? And, you know, Google singletons, and this is the problem with singletons is sometimes people just go a little bit crazy with them and use them too much. In this case, it would probably actually be a good idea to use this as a singleton. We are not in this case. We're doing it the hard way, just so we can sort of consolidate what we're learning. So we created we then went to, where's something else? So we then created a game graphical interface. Okay, and so the game graphical interface was using where is our scene? There we are. So that was using control nodes, and we assigned labels. So labels are things that text can go on, and we also sort of had them so they sort of distribute evenly across the top. Now, in the game graphical user interface, we started accessing this game data node. So we'd create a variable called game data, and then in the ready function we would assign the path. We'd assign the node to that variable, the scene to that variable, and we did so by assuming that when we run the game, the main scene would always be there. So we have no intention of deleting the main scene, which would then mean that the game data would be a direct child of it. So we could say get tree, which gets the scene tree, then get the root, which is there, and then from the root we want to go for the main and then the game data. And assuming we don't do anything silly like delete this main or delete the game data, that should always hold true. Now, there are some error checking things we can do a bit later on, but we'll get to that later. Okay, what did we do then in our graphical user interface? We connected up the signals which were emitted when scores and lives were changed. So what we did was we sort of said when the current score is changed, we then go and update the label. Okay, and the label, of course, is what's shown on the scripts, which was what's shown on the screen. And then what did we do? On the player, we did the same thing. We assigned the variable game data to that scene, and okay, so when the player when the enemy, okay, so just going back to the enemy code, when the enemy is hit, okay, sorry, when the enemy enters when the area of the enemy enters an object and that object is in the group player, we then call the method on that object. And of course, in this case, because there is only one thing that's going to be in the group player, which is the player, that means that we'll call the player and we will call the method called hit. So, and that's it there. So what we do at that stage is we access the game data and we set the lives to game data get lives -1. Okay. So what else did we do? Did we do anything with the spawner? Oh, we changed the spawner speed to 5 just to make it quicker so we're not waiting so long for collisions and stuff like that. But we'll have to change that back later. And I just want to I'm just a bit paranoid and just make sure that we're actually recording audio. It looks like we are. Then what did we do? I think that was pretty much about it. Did we do anything with the enemy? No. Ah, yes, that one thing we did do was, yeah, okay, so I think when the player is hit, we also instanced an explosion. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just tidy up a few things. So let's play the game. So you can see up in the top we've got high scores, bang, scores change, lives now 1. Now lives are 0, so I've got 0 lives left. Now watch what happens here. When I crash, I go to -1. Okay. So we're going to, and now I'm at -2 lives. So what we need to do is we need to tell the game that basically we're no longer playing the game when we get hit. So let's have a bit of a look at this. So let's add some logic here. So game data set lives equals -1. Now, so that will create an explosion. Now, so let's go if. Now I'm just going to copy this across. Right, no. If game, I know, let's do it the hard way again. So if game data dot get lives is greater than 0. So that's saying that it's not 0, it's 1 or something like that. We are going to do this. So we're going to, so I'm just tabbing this. Now we can actually get rid of this because so now if it's less than 0, what we're going to do just for testing purposes, we are going to print dead, and we are going to kill the player, as in remove the player from the scene tree. So let's see what happens here. So let's play. So lives 2, 1, 0, bang. Okay. So that was good, except there was no explosion, was there? So we got down to 0 lives, but there was no explosion. So if it is greater than 0, okay. So what we can do is we can get rid of this. Well, I'm going to Control X to copy that. And we're going to put this up the top. So what that's saying, whoops, and we need to also fix the indenting. So what that's saying, what we're telling the machine to do now is, regardless, so whenever we're hit, we're going to create an explosion. So when we push play, bang, bang, bang. So this time it should explode and I should disappear. There we go. Okay, so that's what we're wanting. Okay. Now, we're going to take a bit of a, we're going to take a bit of a pause now, because what we'd want to do now is we would want to well, actually, no. Let's do that. Let's create a I don't know what we call it, like a game over menu. Okay, so let's create a game over menu. So we're going to go new scene. Let's go user interface. Okay, and let's just create a few things. So let's add a child node. Let's have a center container. And inside that center container, let's have a vertical box. Now I'll put some links to controlly node sort of things, because once you get the hang of them, which honestly I don't have the hang of them, once you get the hang of them, it does make life quite easy. So we're going to use a VBox container. Okay, so that's just saying a vertical box container. That's saying that any child of this is sort of aligned nicely. And let's add another child node, which is also a vertical box container. And add child node, let's center it, center container. Let's have a label. So label. Okay, so what this label is going to be, let's call this game over. Game over. Let's say label game over. Okay, so let's in the text, let's write game over. I'm just going to zoom in here. So this is just so we can sort of see what's sort of happening. So, so game over there, and let's create a. Let's have another center container. Where are we? There we are. Okay, center container. And so I'm just going to check my phone. It's buzzing. Where are we? What's happening here? Okay. Okay. That's fine. It's not, I'll deal with that later. Okay, so we're going to create what we were doing. We're going to create another. No, not another new scene. Another label. Now this label, let's say score. So this will be the label for the score. And on this vertical box we'll have, why don't we have another center container. Center container, and this time let's have a horizontal box. Hbox container. Okay, and in the let's add a center to that. So what the center container does is just centers it without you having to do any sort of mathematical jiggery pokery. And in this one, let's add some buttons. So let's add a button. Let's call this button, let's call it button menu. So this one will take us to a menu. Okay. And let's do the same thing again. So let's go center container, and then we'll, actually no, we don't need to do that, do we? Okay, let's just delete that. Yep. really need that one, do we? So I'm just going to delete that. I'll cancel that. I'm just going to drag this button node to the horizontal box container. I'll get rid of that center because I actually don't need that. And as you can see, it's sort of adding the button. So let's add the second button. How do we add a button? That's how we add a button. Okay, we'll call this button play. So play. Okay, so the text for this button will be play. Oops, helps if I can spell play. And the one for this one will be menu. Should be menu or title? Menu. Now, what you'll notice is as I was typing everything in, you can see that everything actually decided to, so everything's is being formatted quite nicely. Okay, so everything's being formatted quite nicely there. Now, so let's zoom in there. So, yep. Okay, so that's looking pretty good there. So let's scroll back up to the top one. Let's create a script. Whoops, actually let's cancel this. Let's call this game over. Game over. Okay. Rightio. So let's add a script to the game over. Yes, we are in scripts. Open, create. Okay, so let's do what we were doing last time. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable, and we're going to create a variable called game data. Then in the ready, as I said, we could just copy it across from any of the other ones we've done, but let's do it the hard way. So what we're going to want to be doing is game data equals, so we're going to get the tree, so get the scene tree. We're going to get the root, and then we're going to get the node. So it's always going to be get node. It's always going to be a child of main. Okay, and it's going to be game data. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to set the label, no, that's game over, label score to the, where are we? Script. So I'm going to set label score. Let's do the, again, label score, and we're going to set that to be, need to do an onReady variable, don't I? To label score, okay, let's see if that auto filled it out correctly. Yep, label score, and then we need to do the onReady. There we go. So we go label score dot text. Oops. Text equals. Now that's going to equal game data dot get score, get current score, get score current, get score current. Okay. Now, but it's going to be, that's coming as an integer, so we want it as a string. String. Now we could do that whole padding thing that we did on the GUI, but I don't know, sometimes a bit of variety is always good. Okay, so what we want to do now is a couple of things. We need to connect up the buttons. So let's do the onReady thing. So again, you know, it's one of those tough decisions. If I was doing this, you know, if I was just belting out some code, I may not be doing the onReady for the buttons because I probably would only be using them once, so it's probably not efficient coding, but again, always good to practice this. So let's say button play equals, and I must apologize for the last video without audio. That's very embarrassing for me. And then we'll do an onReady variable button, and what do you say was menu or something? Let's have a look. Menu, yes. Button menu. Okay, button menu, so that was button menu. Okay, so we'd say button menu dot connect. Okay, so we'd say pressed. So what we're looking for is we're looking for pressed, comma self. So whatever function it's going to be is going to be calling it, is going to be calling from within this script. And so what we call on button menu pressed. And while we're here, let's just do the other one. We're going to get errors because no, let's do it the proper way. So let's go and create the function. So function on, oh, we need to do that, don't we? Okay, so on, yeah, my mouse is being difficult. I'm on button menu pressed. Okay, so on the menu button pressed, what we're going to do is we're going to, just for the time being, say print switch to menu. I don't know, switch to menu, and then we'll put the code in for this a bit later. Then we'll go function. Oh, but we haven't done that, so let's code in. So button play connect pressed self on button play pressed. Okay. Yeah, so this is sort of the menu that when we die will sort of will pop up. On button menu pressed. Ah, not menu pressed. Play pressed. Play pressed. What we're going to want to do is what we're going to do is we're basically going to re-instance the game and then delete this current instance of it. So let's go variable. What do we have? So variables will be level. So let's just see what's happening. So we've got our main that loads up level. Okay. What we're going to do is we actually need to put the game GUI into the level. So I'm going to delete that from that. So I'm going to delete that node, but we're going to add it into the level. Okay. So let's do this. Let's instance the game GUI. Okay. There we go. So that should run the same. The reason why I did that is my intention is now is to basically when we finish the game, to restart the game is to instance another instance of level 00 and then delete the current one. So let's do that now. Wait, what's unsaved? Oh, this is the game over, isn't it? Okay. Haven't saved this. Bad me. Game over. Why have I got capitals? Let's delete the capitals. Save. Oh, and I've got capitals there. Okay. I don't know, for the OCD amongst you, you're probably going to hate that we've got capitals there. Doesn't really particularly bother me a great deal. On button, press play. So we're going to variable so level okay, yeah, no, we'll do it this way. Level instance equals load. Now, one problem I see with doing it this way is that you'll have to use some if you want to make this more advanced, you'll have to add something that sort of will then sort of determine which level you're going to load. Okay, but this is just for an example on how to get the hang of Godot. We're just using a one level sort of a game. So remember instance. Okay. Now we're going to get. No, we're going to. Let's add it. No, get parent. Yes, get parent. Now the thing is, this. Okay, so this is going to be. So this is a game over menu, which will be instanced by the level itself. So that means that we're going to have to get the parent and then get the parent again to get the parent of the level. Add child, level instance. And then we're going to get the parent. So by getting the parent, we're actually getting the current level instance. And let's queue free. Okay. So let's see how we go here now. One thing we probably want to do is when we're dead, no, not when we're dead, when we create our player, we're probably going to want to set our current score to 0. So game data, that's score current equals actually no, we should use that set thing, shouldn't we? Set current set set score current. That's just my phone buzzing in the background. Don't pay no attention to that. Score current to 0. Okay, so let's give this a crack and see what happens. Now, it won't look very pretty when we get that ooh. Okay, what happened there? Okay, so what's happened here is when we change the position of the GUI, it's gone and messed everything up. So what we need to do is fix that first. Okay, game GUI. So let's have a look and see what's happened here. So probably the easiest way to fix this is to go right 420. Let's just see. Let's just see if this fixes it. Yep, so that fixes it. So bang, 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 and one lucky last time, bang. Okay. Now, we didn't display the game over menu. Why is that? Let's go to our script. Well, of course we didn't, because we didn't instance it. So variable game over instance equals load load game over, where are you? Game over scene. There we go. Dot instance. Okay, so we want to add this as a child of the parent. So we want to what do we want to, no, we don't want to do it as itself. Get parent dot add child game over instance. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay. Okay, so it does work. Okay, so what we've got is we've got our menu and our play. Now, clicking that should only produce switching to main menu. It won't actually do anything, and it does. And clicking that should play the game again, which it does. Now, let's just get a score on the board. So I've got a high score of 2. Okay, so what happened there was we died instantly, and the reason for that is we didn't reset our lives. Okay, but when we click play again, we should still have the high score and a score of 0, which we do. So let's fix this up. Player, so in fact, what we could do is we could create an export variable called lives, and we could equal that to 3. And what this will mean is that if you wanted to set a different amount of lives, you can have that in the inspector there. And then what we're going to do is game data set lives to be lives. Now this should work a treat. Famous last words. So I'll just get some points on the board. And so what we can see, so high score is 4, current score is 4, 2 lives, 1 life, last life, dead. Okay. So then when we click play again, I've got 3 lives, high score is 4, current score is 0. Lives 2. Boom. Nice. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so that's working. What we need to do now is we just need to adjust the position of the game over menu. So let's have a look here at what's happening. So let's go to layout. Wait, let's go to local, game over. Let's go to layout and let's go to full rectangle and let's center it. Center. Okay. Oh wait, maybe center contain is what we need to center. So full rectangle, did that center it? Yep, okay, so that looks like it centered it. Let's see how we go. Okay, so it centered it there, so what we need to do is we need to just play with the margins. So game over, margins, that's why, so we want a left margin of 0 and a top margin of 0, a right margin of 0 and bottom margin of 0. Let's see how this works. Yeah, as I said, the control nodes take a little getting the hang of, but once you get the hang of it, it actually does save a lot of... That didn't do anything, did it? So let's... So let's go for a margin of... Okay, so let's go to... actually, let's go to control. Wait, where are we? So center container. Use top left. Okay, let's see if that works. Actually, what I should do is I should be smart about this and set my... Okay, so what we're going to do, just for this purpose of testing, let's go to player and let's set our lives to 0. Which means we should only need to die once. Okay. So what we'll do is let's go to this and let's just say 80. Let's go 420 minus 80. Let's go... Oops, no, we don't want that. We want margin top of 0. We want right is going to be 420 minus 80. We say 640, I think. Okay. And let's see. So this time we should only die once, hopefully. And why is this not playing the game? Okay, so let's just go there. Okay. So much for me bragging about the control nodes, but this is mainly just my not knowing how to use them. So let's go to, where are we? Local center container VBox. Okay, so that should be centered. I think it's because we're bringing it into another node. So what we can do is, what do we have here? Okay. Actually, let's try a different preset. Center wide, where are we? So let's try that one. Let's try center wide, that one. Okay, so let's just see how this goes. Okay, so let's just do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, so we've got the menu there. So when we go play, let's get some scores on the board. So now when I die, so we've got the game over, and we've got the score. So what we can do is we can go to game over, and we can go to here, and so is that game over? And so we can say score, whoops, score plus the score there. Okay, and so that'll then bring that up there. Okay, so what we'll do is, let's go and create a menu now. Now the only thing is, I don't know why this is not playing the game. So actually, what did I move? Did I move this? Yeah, that's what I moved last time, wasn't it? Let's just reset these values. So let's go layout, full rect, and that one can be, actually it's probably just easier if I set it here. So margin will be what, let's say 200, top 200, right 200, bottom. Okay, let's see what happens when we do that. Okay, so it's 200 top, oops. Okay, so if we do this, okay, so anyway, we'll play around with that a bit later to find out how to actually get that centered. It should be centering by itself. I suspect it's got something to do with the fact that it's, in fact, well, honestly, I've got no idea why it's not working. Okay, so let's call it a day on that video. And so hopefully that's given you a bit of information as to what went down on the video without sound, and is now getting the game so it's ready to actually be repeatable. I was hoping to do a title screen, but I was more keen to actually get the to sort of let you know what happened in the previous video while it was still fresh in my mind. Okay, so until next time, I will see you later.